Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss how the government's ill-conceived Eat Out to Help Out scheme was not only morally obscene when you consider the fact that Johnson & Co were claiming they could afford to pay for restaurant meals for those who are comfortably off at least, but could not afford to feed starving children. But it has also backfired spectacularly in an entirely predictable way, as research has now added to the belief that it helped fuel our current second COVID wave. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So first of all, if there's any little audio changes you notice, there's a reason for that. My microphone is broken, so we're using a different one. Hopefully it's not too bad. But anyway, just under 3 months ago, the Chancellor Rishi Sunak famously publicised his Eat Out to Help Out scheme by bringing out a couple of plates of food to a group of diners in a restaurant. No face masks would be seen. He stood there talking to them, encouraging them to talk to him, salivary droplets from different households, all being expelled and hanging in the air for any poor wretches who might breathe the air in over the next few hours. What could possibly go wrong in the middle of a pandemic? The stated aim of the scheme was to help boost the economy after it had taken a bit of a hit from the first wave restrictions and then, of course, a general change in behaviour. You would expect a general change in behaviour. We're in the middle of a pandemic, very serious, and people very sensibly tried to maintain distancing where they could. All right, there's certain situations where, because of my work or whatever else, I'm going to have to be in relatively close contact to these people. How do I reduce my risk? Well, what other situations don't I have to put myself in that will also help? Oh, I don't need to go to a restaurant because I can get food at home, or I could get takeaway. Yeah, let's do that. So the government wanted to sort of boost participation in restaurants. You know, it involved a sort of bog-off offer, buy one, get one free. So if you bought 2 restaurant meals up to a certain value, then the taxpayer, not the government, not Rishi Sunak, the taxpayer, would pay for the other one. Now, like I said, the counterpoint with another meal funding programme is quite obscene, because just before this scheme launched, the government had tried to say that it could not afford to extend free school meals to the poorest kids in the country over summer. We're not made of money, you know, even though it would have been a fraction of the cost of Eat Out to Help Out. In addition, although they did U-turn on that, they still reckon they're going to try and starve kids again this Christmas. But the scheme was reckless from the start. Public health experts say that restaurants are like the worst things in a pandemic. Now, there'll be some people who think, oh, I can imagine other scenarios that are worse. But if you think about quite a lot of other scenarios that are as bad or worse, in theory, they're more necessary. There's totally no need to go to a restaurant. It is a luxury to have someone else cook your food for you. And you're talking about a situation where you're indoors, so risk straight away, because again, the droplets hanging in the air, there's no ventilation to move them on like outdoors. Not wearing face masks. Now, at the time, not even staff were wearing face masks, but diners, of course, can't wear face masks. A little bit tricky to eat with a face mask. I've not actually tried myself, but I can imagine. So you've also not got the face mask in there. Also, unlike in, say, an office, where you may also have people sat around in there all day, they're the same people. Whereas with a restaurant, you've got a group come in for an hour and then they're off, and then another group comes in. You've got a constant changeover of people there, all these droplets in the air, potentially surviving for hours. And, you know, the chance of infection is much higher. And as I say, the fact of the matter is that a restaurant is not essential. It's essential for people who work in a restaurant, but that's what, you know, income support schemes would have been needed for. But the actual purpose of a restaurant is not actually necessary. It is a luxury in a society. And at the time, you know, it wasn't even like people from the same household around different tables. It was mixed households anyway. Then you think, well, okay, maybe people could at least get a takeaway. If you want to actually boost restaurants, well, again, do takeaways. Oh wait, no, the scheme wasn't allowed for that. Only applied to meals eaten inside the restaurant. There were like KFCs and stuff like that that would have on the drive-through, Eat Out to Help Out only applies if you eat it inside. If you buy the same stuff for the same money and take it away with you, nah, not happening. It was like the scheme was deliberately set up to promote the virus. I mean, never mind looking into Russian interference into the Conservative Party. Can we not see if the coronavirus has been making large donations to the Tories? There wasn't even a sensible, robust economic reason for the scheme. Because, again, people will sort of suggest this idea of, well, you have to choose either healthcare or the economy. In actual fact, in a pandemic such as this, you don't. Because if you knacker the public health situation, you knacker the economy. We know this. But economists had said that the restaurants, if you were going to help certain businesses, restaurants were not the businesses to help, because they can refire their operations immediately. When you close a restaurant down and you say it can open up again, it can get started pretty quickly. There are other types of business that can't. It takes longer to get back into the swing of things. Maybe they should have the targeted support. Rishi Sunak himself admitted in Parliament that this funding, and it wasn't just, there was other bits of funding as well, was not properly targeted. He accepted that. And he cited a lack of time to do so. By this point, the emergency had been in full swing in this country for 5 months. How much more time do you want? Unless, of course, he's trying to suggest he's just as bad as Boris Johnson and doesn't plan ahead either. What, you mean back in March you weren't really planning for this point? Is that what you're saying there? I think that's what he's saying. But anyway, the idea that this would promote a refiring of infections was fairly obvious. But now we've got research from the University of Warwick that suggests they reckon between 8% and 17% of new infection clusters were directly linked to this scheme. They also noted, because again, you don't just say, oh, you know, the scheme came into place and then we saw a rise of infections. That's not a causal link there, because it could just be coincidence. So you look at other factors as well. So they also saw where the uptake of Eat Out to Help Out was highest. And they went, right, okay. So then what happened when the scheme ended? So a week after the scheme ended, the areas where more people were using Eat Out to Help Out, that saw a significant drop in infections. Also, areas with higher rainfall. Again, they can't get figures on how many people were using restaurants at one time. A lot of that would be, you know, they're private organisations. Data isn't publicly available. And the government don't, if they did collect that data, they wouldn't be announcing it until next year. So they had to go by, you know, indirect effects. So rainfall, where there was heavy rainfall at around lunchtime, not got that many people going to the restaurant as compared to sunnier areas. Where it was rainy, you had lower infection rates compared to areas that were sunnier during lunchtimes. Essentially, areas that had higher incidences of restaurant goers saw a greater increase in new infections. I know, shock of the century. Which of course sinks the economic argument for the scheme even further, because anything that drives the infection higher hurts the economy. So it's like we literally paid £500 million to further harm our economy. And even the concept of an economic boost didn't actually exist. Well, it helped to boost the restaurants. No, it didn't. Economists have noted that the boost was short-lived. So it didn't kickstart anything. It helped restaurants make more money for the length of the scheme only, a few weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, after which there was nothing sustained. No momentum was built up. So yeah, we're thinking like that. Let's say Rishi Sunak did become the next Prime Minister. I'm not sure Labour would be worried. In fact, actually, just a thought. At the moment, we've got this 3-tier restriction system in the country, in England. And the highest tier means that pubs aren't allowed to be open unless they serve proper meals. Not a pasty and a packet of crisps, proper meals. And then you are allowed to go to those pubs as long as it's to have the proper meal. You can still have the drinks as well, but you've got to have the proper meal. Can't just go in for drinks. And restaurants are fine as well. They all have to close at 10 o'clock. That's the same everywhere in the country. And at the time I was thinking, why would you do this? Is the thinking that, well, if you're just going in to drink, you're just going to get drunk, and drunks aren't going to be sensible with their, you know, distancing and all the rest of it? And I'm thinking, well, yeah, you can get that. Drunks are going to be less sensible. But going to a restaurant, like I've already suggested, is not in the current situation not sensible anyway. I mean, takeaway, okay. But actually going into a restaurant, no, that's not sensible. No matter how sober you are, that's not sensible. So the restaurants should have been closed down as well, and then the workers supported. And they didn't do that. Why would they do it for some pubs and not all pubs and restaurants? And I've just thought, so if they did, what we'd be saying at this point is, oh, so you paid £500 million to give a bit of a boost to these restaurants for 3 weeks, and now you've doomed them to being closed for months on end because you actually drove up infections to the point where we need to close the restaurants. Maybe that's the reason they've done that. Maybe that is the reason they wouldn't close the restaurants, because that would be a bad look, wouldn't it? That would be a terrible look. Yeah, that could be it. But anyway, needless to say, the Treasury have refused to accept these findings. They don't want to say, yeah, we paid 522 million quid to actually drive this second wave we're having right now. That would be bad. But interestingly, though, a group at Oxford University have said, yeah, these results look about right, and they're in line with similar investigations as well. So essentially, the following are true. 1, purely in terms of empirical thinking, encouraging people to socialise indoors fairly close to one another, all from different households, is known to drive coronavirus infections. And that's exactly what happens in a restaurant. And you've got a regular changeover of people as well. 2, it's not viable to have diners at least use face masks to reduce the impact. So if you are going to have people in an indoor setting, face masks, but you can. And at the time, staff weren't even required to wear them, massively increasing the risk still further, because they're really moving past each other as well. There's no way of them distancing. And 3 now, credible research from multiple sources, it seems, linking a rise in new infections directly with the scheme. So yeah, the Treasury can continue to deny the link if it wishes, just like Tony Blair can deny that the Iraq war made the country less safe. But the reality is that this is just another example of how the government made things much worse for us, even when it tried to help out. Let us say that this was a genuine attempt to try and boost the economy. They actually wanted to help. They've shot us in the foot by doing so. Imagine what would happen if they ever tried to do us serious harm. Oh wait. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.